Hello and welcome to episode number 47. I'm Gayla Scrivener, your host, and I am super happy that you're here with me today for this podcast. Last week, I shared my story about working in the medical field for 20 years and transitioning in having more freedom in my work. And having more freedom, it doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen without discipline. But I do believe, like I said last week, that we can all achieve more freedom and enjoy what we do. And one way in doing that, and what the subject of today's podcast is about creating content and creating consistent content, because consistency is super important. And so let's talk about consistency for a moment and what that may mean and what you should be creating. And it's different for every individual. So I'm going to give you some ideas and have you think about that so that you can either move forward in your business that you've already started, or thinking about something like, okay, what am I going to start and be consistent of? Because consistency is a component of building trust and having people get to know you and building relationships. And when I first started Scrivener Solutions, I had moved from my home in Florida back to where family was, around the Springfield, Missouri area. The only people that I had known for so many years happened to be in the medical field. Well, I didn't want to do that anymore, and I needed to find a way to meet people. And at the time, being a virtual assistant and needing to find my first clients, I was kind of lost on what I needed to do, except the most important thing in my gut that I knew I needed to do was meet new people. And how I did that was join a networking group. And this networking group would meet every single week. And part of their guidelines in becoming a member is to have a certain amount of attendance. They had attendance rules because they knew the importance of being present, and having that consistency was super important. That became my first level of content, if you will, because I would go each and every week to this networking group, and I did that for many years. I want to say 6 years. I was a member of this networking group and held leadership positions, became involved, and met a lot of wonderful small business owners and became a part of a community. And that was important. But if I did not show up on a consistent basis, and that was the underlying thing, that was my starting of my foundation, was being present each and every week, that I could not have built upon that. And that was my first level of content. That was my eyeball to eyeball communication, if you will. Any other content that I'm going to be talking about is going to be involving digital content and the importance of having consistency there. What it all boils down to, the content that we create digitally is just an extension of a conversation. That's what you need to remember. In this day and age, having content out there digitally helps us scale our communication. It helps us build relationships. I started my foundation with a networking group, and since then, I have changed my networking strategy. A weekly meeting became more and more difficult. We travel for bigger blocks of time. Being able to adhere to attendance rule did not stick with us. But I believe that me getting started with that face-to-face networking on a weekly basis was imperative in the growth of my business. Now, I am more focused on face-to-face networking at events, big events. I have on my schedule events that I need to go to because I find it very important that I interact with different individuals online, but I want to go to these bigger events so that we can solidify our connections and we can meet people, because obviously face-to-face is the way to really nurture relationships. But I also believe that you have to have online content produced on a consistent basis so that you can further that conversation or even meet people before you meet people. So for digital content, you'll need to think of what is it that you can do on a consistent basis to extend that conversation. And it starts with a blog. And that may intimidate you because, hey, a blog, oh my gosh, I need a website. Well, later down in the weeks, we're going to talk about websites and starting one and being able to maintain your own website and how it doesn't have to be very complicated or anything like that. And even if you're not tech savvy, you can do it. A blog traditionally meant writing an article, and that scares folks sometimes, but it shouldn't scare you. A blog can also be a video or an audio like this podcast or the written word. It's something that's put out onto your website on a consistent basis. But maybe you're not quite there yet to create your website. So what can you do on a consistent basis to extend the conversations? One way is to be consistently present on social media. Get into the habit of picking one social media platform that you enjoy and consistently post on it. And not salesy stuff, but things that open you up on your philosophies, what you like, what other people might like. I know that Robert, he has 3 main things that he really, really enjoys. And maybe 4. Let me see. We love our overland travel, and he posts on that. He loves ham radio. He posts on that. He loves Mountain Man stuff. And he loves music. He's a musician. But the first 3, Mountain Man, overlanding, and ham radio, is what he posts the most of on his social media. And he gets the most responses and the most activity on ham radio things and Mountain Man, his leatherwork stuff. And that is giving him ideas, sparking ideas. It's like, I get more responses on social for these things that I had no idea. And it's sparking ideas of, well, maybe I should be doing more of that. Maybe I can teach some things and things like that. And for me, when I was first starting, I really didn't know, because I thought what I was doing was kind of boring and thought nobody really wants to hear all this businessy stuff. Well, you may be in a industry that is super saturated, and that's okay, because you need to be present and be present on a consistent basis so that you're out there. Recently, I had somebody give me a call and asked for some ideas. They had just started their business. They pivoted. They went from one type of business, and it's been about less than a year that they have been in this new business. And they're frustrated because they only have just a couple of customers for that, and they're still depending on their old business for their major income. And they're going to networking meetings and doing the face-to-face thing, but they're frustrated because that is slow. They need to elevate their communication. They're very, very intimidated about the technology part of it. And I can understand about that, but you don't need to let technology stand in your way. You can think of one thing that you can do on a consistent basis to communicate with folks. And what I had suggested to this individual was to, she had a couple of customers already in her new business. I asked, how are you communicating with them? Are you following up? She's like, well, I'd see them at the networking meetings. What I suggested to her was email. And in future weeks, we're going to talk about email because that's part of your foundation for your marketing is creating an email strategy. And what I had told her was to email on a consistent basis the customers, because even if you only have 2, creating the habit early on how you're going to follow up with those customers, with those contacts, to provide them with encouragement and ideas on a consistent basis. And you can do that through email because she knows how to use email. She can just make it super simple to email at first and then transition later as she gets comfortable with the process. But since she doesn't have a big list, she can just email just those 2 on a consistent basis to get her in the habit. And when she's out at networking groups, I had told her that it would be a good idea to ask people's permission to send them emails and then gather a list, because then she will be open on learning how to use other tools that could scale, other tools like MailChimp or Constant Contact. And she's super intimidated by technology, but that first step in creating that habit of consistent content, what is it that I'm going to do each and every week to communicate with people that I already know? And in her case, getting started with email fit for her. So for you, when you want to advance in creating more freedom, creating your business of freedom, what is it? What's that one thing that you can communicate on a consistent basis? Is it doing a weekly video? Is it creating a weekly podcast? Pick one thing to get started. Is it committing to a post a day on social media? Is it committing to sending an email once a week? Is it doing a once a month newsletter? What is it? Pick the frequency and the one thing that you'll get started on and make it a habit, because then we can build on that. I started with face-to-face meetings and made that a habit, made the commitment that I would not miss and that I was going through consistency. I was learning from other folks and I was gaining confidence and I disciplined myself. That opened up so many doors. I added consistent emails. I added consistent social posts. I added consistent content on my website. I might have not put it in the exact order that I should have, but I figured that out, once I kept doing it. So for you need to figure out that one thing that you're going to do on a consistent basis. And I'd encourage you to do it on a weekly basis. Now, if you're already networking face-to-face and you have so many meetings that you're hitting the streets so much and you're worn out from going to so many meetings, you need to stop and think for a moment, because I believe that you can scale your communication through digital means, and you can leverage your time in so much more of an effective way than totally focusing on face-to-face networking. Because I think that if you're going to so many meetings and beating the streets, and there may be a period of time and in part of your strategy, you may want to do that for a few months. That's okay. But there comes a time that you need time for yourself. There comes a time where you want to have more scalability, because obviously you can't get more time in the day. So being able to evaluate on what you're going to give up so that you can replace it with digital content so that you can leverage your time, you can reach more people, you can even get to know people before you get to know people. That is a powerful thing. So if you're out there networking, that is a fantastic thing. But if you're networking to where that's all you're doing and you're super tired, how, all the places that you have to be, and that you really are longing for some time for yourself, pick one of those meetings that you'll give up and replace it with spending time on getting started with your digital content, with starting your blog, with emailing the people that you already know, and make that your weekly meeting. I think that is the first step on going in the right direction, on leveraging your time and getting some time back and scaling your business. Now, next week, I am bringing on a wonderful person. Her name is Joanne Weiland, and I am super excited for you to meet her next week, because creating consistent content really ties into what she had created to leverage and amplify so many small business solopreneurs businesses and really launch them. And the ones that create consistent content are the ones that really are successful in that community, because they are able to get more referrals, land more new clients through their consistent content. So I am super excited to introduce her next week to you. Well, I'm going to wrap it up for this week, and I appreciate you being here. And I would love to hear from you. If you would email me at podcast@scrivenersolutions.com. That's podcast at SCRIVENER solutions.com. And let me know what your one thing that you're going to do on a consistent basis. Your digital content. Are you going to email? Are you posting each and every day to your favorite social? What's your favorite social platform? Do you have a blog already? Are you starting a blog? Let me know. Email me. If you're stuck because you don't know what to do, email me. And let's start our conversation to know what may work for you. If you're networking and you're beating the streets and you're just kind of stuck on what can you do digitally to leverage your time, email me. Just ask. Now, I started something new a few weeks ago, and I would love for you to join me. It's every Friday at 2 o'clock. I am live on Facebook, and I'm touching on a few little subjects from the podcast or from questions that come up. But I would love for you to tap in to that Facebook Live. If it's a message that resonates with you, I'd love for you to share it. I want to be present, but it's another way that you can get to know me a little bit better, because I may not be seeing you eyeball to eyeball very often, but that's a way that we can. Well, at least you can see my eyeballs on Facebook Live. But until next week, I hope that you have a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing your content. Talk to you soon.